Hey guys, and thanks for tuning in to All Things Skaven, a series from Long Island Wargaming with myself, Nick, in which I just bring you different reviews on the Skaven units and point costs and whatnot. So, this video is on the Doomwheel. If you already know about the Doomwheel and you want to just skip ahead to my thoughts and analysis on the unit and who I would bring it against and who I wouldn't bring it against, click on this link right here so you can skip to the middle of the video. But for anyone that's curious about the Doomwheel, I'm going to first go over some facts about it straight out of the book, some points, and what it comes with. So let's dive into it. So the Doomwheel is a rare choice for the Skaven army. It does have random move 3d6. It functions as a chariot, so it does have its strength 6 hits that it will do for its impact hits, and it does have impact hits d6 plus 1. And it also has toughness 6, so the thing's pretty hard to kill. It does come with 5 wounds, and it does a special close combat attack, which is a grinding attack, and it does that on the turns that it doesn't charge. So pretty much if you charge, you get your d6 plus 1 impact hits, and then if you, in all other turns where you didn't charge or if the enemy charged you, you do d3 grinding attacks at the strength 6, which is really cool. And then for its other attacks, it does have an engineer inside the Doomwheel, and it also has a bunch of rats running it, so it's like a giant hamster wheel with weapon skill 3, strength 2, at initiative 4, and it's 2d6 random attacks. So it's a random amount of attacks that you'll be getting in combat. So really, you're more interested in this thing attacking with its grind attack, its impact hits, and its lightning attacks that it does in the shooting phase. So, it's also leadership 7, so it can actually do alright on its own as long as it's not losing combat terribly, so you might want to use it as a support unit. Now, it comes with a 4+ armor save, it's immune to psychology, large target, and it causes terror. So those are some cool rules. It also has the rolling doom, which is essentially the 3d6 movement. Now, the FAQ might have removed that just to say random move 3d6, but in the book itself it'll go over its 3d6 random move, and then you might want to check the FAQ and ignore what's in there about what would happen if it was to hit impassable terrain or difficult terrain, and just use the rules from the FAQ, which essentially says treat it as a chariot for going into impassable terrain and difficult terrain and all that fun stuff. And like I said, it's got that grinding attack, so it's going to do those high strength hits in subsequent turns of combat. And then loss of control is a pretty interesting rule. At any point, if the Doomwheel suffers a wound in in any phase that it's not engaged in combat, what happens is you roll a d6 for each wound. So if you take 3 wounds, you roll 3 dice. On the roll of a 1, the Doomwheel goes out of control. When the Doomwheel goes out of control, it uses the result from the Doomwheel misfire chart, and essentially it moves a random direction on the scatter dice. And so that could be inconvenient, or it could just get you exactly where you need it. But that's only on the roll of a 1 for d6 for each time you're taking a wound. So it's 1/6 chance you will go out of control, and hopefully with your armor save 4+ and your toughness 6, you're not taking too many wounds. Alright, so we'll move on to its zap attack. And that's essentially a shooting attack that it has, which is really unique. And you get 3 shots. And now this thing shoots the closest unit, which could be your own unit. So, if you know it's going to be staying near your own guys, I've in the past brought a small unit of slaves to suck up the hits, or if you're pretty confident in your leadership, you can pass a leadership test to not shoot. But once you are close enough to an enemy, or you accidentally shoot on your own guys, you roll 3 artillery dice, one after another, to see what the strength of each hit that you're getting on the enemy is. Of course, if you roll a misfire, you stop and refer to the chart, and I will go over that chart first. On a 1 to 2, the Doomwheel immediately takes d6 strength 6 hits. On the roll of a 3 to 5, it goes out of control, like I described before, and on the roll of a 6, you get an additional d6 for the remainder of the game. And then disaster, the first one or 2, you actually lose a d6. So depending on what you roll, the thing could slow down or it could speed up. I've gotten the Doomwheel up to 6 d6 movement, which was pretty crazy. But in a more recent game, I did have it up to 5 d6. So this thing is just flying across the table at crazy speeds. But you really can't help or bank on that happening, so that's just a little bonus if you do roll a 6 on the misfire chart. But if everything goes fine with your shooting attacks, you work out 3 shots, or 2 or 1, depending on what gets off, at the strength of the artillery dice. So for argument's sake, let's say you roll a 4, a 6, and an 8. 6 and 8 strength is pretty good. Against infantry, okay, you might kill 3 guys, that's fine. But this is more for monstrous infantry or cavalry, or things with multiple wounds, because if the wounds get off, it does d6 multiple wounds from there. So this thing can take out a unit of ogres just by its shooting attack. So we'll get more into that in a second, but it does have some pretty aggressive firepower to it. Alright, so let's first talk about it as a combat unit. So I look at it 2 different ways: combat unit or a support unit. Now you think a giant hamster wheel would be a combat unit because it's just going to roll in and do devastating amounts of damage, but it's got some support side to it. But let's take a quick look at the combat to it. It's moving fast. So on 3d6, on average, you'll be able to move, I don't know, let's say 9 or 10 inches. If you can get in a position where you're either going to front charge or flank charge, that's pretty decent. Now you got to consider your enemy. You're going to want the thing to charge against infantry, I'm going to say, because it's got a high strength. You want to knock out a bunch of cheap infantry units, and the impact hits are great. So d6 plus 1 strength 6 hits, pretty good against infantry. But you're going to get a lot of attacks back at it. So I mean, depends on what kind of infantry. I wouldn't run the thing into a unit of white lions. The thing would get destroyed. But Empire Spearmen, the thing would do fine. I mean, you're going to get your armor save. They're going to need 6s to wound you with your toughness 6. So it's good against infantry. You just got to make sure it's in the right place. Now, let's say monstrous infantry or monstrous cavalry or something a little bit bigger. Still not a bad choice to send it in after because of the strength 6, the impact hits, and then of course the grinding attack on the turns it doesn't charge. But I mean, d6 plus 1 strength 6 impact hits is pretty good. Now, when you're in combat, that means the closest enemy is the unit you're touching. So hopefully the shooting attack is also helping you during the shooting phase. So against monstrous infantry and cavalry and just bigger units, with the combined impact hits and the shooting attack, it does pretty well against those things because it will be able to do the multiple wounds from the shooting attack, and it will also be able to do high strength impact hits. Unless you're fighting infantry, I wouldn't rely on the 2d6 random attacks. But you need to be able to do some combat res, especially if it's going by itself, because leadership 7 is great, but not when you lose combat by 3. So, with that being said, well, also with the infantry, or anything that has a low enough leadership, remember this thing causes terror. So if you can break an enemy before getting to it, that's even better. But let's look at it as a support unit. Why not just have this thing run past units? Well, if you're running past a unit, you'll be able to do your warp lightning attacks or your zap attacks. So let's say you want to run it past a unit of skull crushers, which I've done. I'm not ready to combat, I'm not ready to fight it. I'm not even facing the skull crushers, but remember, you get to pivot before moving this random move unit, so it could charge whatever direction you want it to. But I've had it run past a unit of skull crushers and kill 2 out of 3 of them from the shooting attack, which is pretty awesome. So why get into combat if I can just do some support attacks from outside of combat? So the thing's not bad at shooting, so I would recommend lining this thing up against high armored, high toughness units, because the fact that it could shell out strength 6, strength 8, strength 10 hits is pretty decent, especially with the d6 hit multiple wounds. The fact that it will go up against, let's say, if you run it past a unit of ogres, doesn't matter what ogres, just we'll say ogres because they're cheap enough that you could field blocks of 9 or 12 or 16 of them. Run that around them for a turn or two. Odds are you're able to kill 2 to 3 ogres a turn. Let's say you're rolling well, you're not rolling misfires. We'll say on average 2, because you're going to get a roll of a 2 or a 4 once in a while. But when you do wound it, they don't have armor. But either way, your d6 multiple wounds, as long as you're rolling a 3 or higher, you're able to kill entire monstrous infantry units like ogres. Now, let's say after you do that for a turn or two, and your clan rats or whatever is there, your support units are there, alright, get them all into combat. Hopefully by that point you can get a rear charge, which is even better. So the thing has a cool support attack feature. Now, well, let's go through the armies. Let's see. Beastmen. Would I bring this thing against Beastmen? Yeah, why not? I think it will do alright with its impact hits. If there's Minotaurs on the field or any of those big beastie guys, I'd bring it. That's the thing. I didn't even bring up monsters. 3 possible chances at getting a strength 6, 8, 10 hit on a monster and then do d6 multiple wounds. It's not bad. This thing is good again. I mean, I know you think the lightning cannon is the cannon of the army. This thing is a mobile cannon. I mean, it could go up and say you have some nasty lord on a mounted dragon or something. This thing can take it out. It can. I mean, it's also unreliable. It does misfire once in a while. But an army like Beastmen, I'd bring it. An army like Bretonia, I haven't played against Bretonia in about 4 years. So maybe I'm not the best judge of this, but cavalry, I mean, if you get to charge, go for it, because then you can get some nice impact hits and hopefully knocked out some guys with let's see, 4, 5, 6, so -3 armor save. It's not bad. Demons of Chaos. Yeah, I'd bring it. I mean, usually the demons have ward saves and magic resistance and whatnot, but I'm sorry, ward saves and regen. I would recommend it for demons, because if you have enough shooting stuff in the shooting phase, you could probably warp fire thrower let's say a great unclean one, get rid of his regen for the turn, and then warp lightning cannon him with the not warp lightning cannon, but zap him with the Doomwheel. I think that's something that people forget a lot. When you flame something that's regen, they lose it for the phase. So then once you get rid of it, then shoot it with stuff that is more effective. But Demons of Chaos, I don't know. Why not? For the points it's worth, I'd bring it, see how it goes. Dark Elves, it's a must. Why? Because what do Dark Elves bring? Hydras. Why? Because they're so freaking cheap. So they're gonna bring at least 1 to 2 Hydras. What's this thing gonna do? Well, if it gets some impact hits, great. If it doesn't do impact hits and it's just running around in circles and it's able to do some zap attacks, even better, because then you got that D6 multiple wounds. Of course, you have to get past the regen, but maybe you hit it with some fire or a scorch spell or something before. Well, no, scorch would be in magic phase, so hopefully just something shooting can get rid of the regen. So Dark Elves, bring it. I mean, they don't always have high strength on their infantry, so if you get the thing into combat, toughness 6, 4+ wards, 4+ armor save, it'll do all right. Dwarves. I feel like dwarves have so many artillery. You'd be better off bringing a Hellpit Abomination because it's got regen, which of course they'll probably just mark up their stuff with fire attacks, but I'm on the fence with dwarves. Against high elves, yeah, I'd bring it. I mean, you got to put it in the right place though. Do not send it up against white lions or sword masters. Anything that's got strength 5, strength 6, always strike first with rerolls. I mean, as of right now, this is recorded on April 6, 2013, so there is a rumored book coming out soon, so I don't know what's going on with high elves. But if you get them against like some spearmen, they're not going to do anything about it. 6 to wound, you have your 4+ armor save, hopefully you're grinding them down. So I would bring it against the high elves. Lizardmen, I'd bring it. Ogre Kingdoms, I'd think I'd bring it, especially from the zap attack. I mean, in case there's some Mournfang on the field, you need to be able to take those things down. Orcs and Goblins, yeah. Against another Skaven player, didn't even think about that. Sure, why not? That would just be a stupid fun game, so let's just bring Doomwheels. The Empire, it might be effective against its troops and its monstrous cavalry and whatnot, but cannons will knock this thing out. So, I mean, you can always expect a cannon from an Empire player. I mean, now that I think about it, Ogre Kingdoms with the Iron Blaster, I don't know, up in the air. But usually cannons would sway me away from bringing it, but I mean, depends on who you're playing or what other big things you're bringing. If you're bringing the Doomwheel and a Hellpit Abomination and a Screaming Bell, there's plenty of things to shoot at, so one thing is going to at least make it to the enemy line, so why not up your chances by bringing a bunch of big stuff? I don't know. Vampire counts? Definitely. Because anything that's ethereal, the zap attack counts as as a warpstone weapon, so that counts as magical. So I mean, anything that's ethereal, you're gonna want those magical attacks. Warriors of Chaos, they don't have a giant cannon. I mean, they've got the Hell Cannon, but nothing crazy. I'd bring it. I mean, Chaos Warriors, it'll do some damage if you can get your impact hits in, and then during your shooting phase, get off those shooting attacks. But I mean, Skull Crushers, this thing I've seen destroy Skull Crushers. So bring it. Bring it versus Warriors of Chaos. And then last on the list is Wood Elves. I don't see why you wouldn't bring it against Wood Elves. I don't even know what you would use to kill it. Strength 6, toughness 6. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, bring it against Wood Elves. Who gives a crap? So I would recommend this thing. I would definitely bring it wherever you can. It's really up to you how you want to use it. I mean, it is hard to control sometimes with a just random move, but if you can just get it up on a flank and maybe shoot some stuff, or if you're not into the whole shooting, which I think that's where this thing's strength is, those 3 shots at artillery dice strength at D6 multiple wounds, that's where it's at. I mean, D6 plus 1 impact hits is great and all, causing terror, great. The zap attack is where it's at. So this thing is totally worth it for that, and that's why I bring it. I don't worry about the impact hit and stuff because my Hellpit Abomination is what's getting into combat. What else? Just overall good. I like it. So, and it's fun. And remember, when you're playing Skaven, you have to have fun. If you want to win and always win a Skaven, don't bring the Doomwheel. When it gets shot at, it has a chance of blowing up. When it shoots, it has a chance of blowing up. When it suffers a wound from magic, it has a chance of going around direction. Not 100% reliable, but big risk, big reward. So, 2 thumbs up for Doomwheel. Bring it. Comments below, please. Let me know what you guys think. Any good experiences you had with it, bad experiences, thoughts, anything I've missed. But go Doomwheel. So here's the link for the index if you want to check out a different video. Otherwise, check out some battle reports because I just about always bring it with my Skaven. So great, guys. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comments. Awesome.